All right, so good morning, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. For those joining us for the first time, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And today's session is particularly exciting for a couple reasons. Number one, it is our first week of February, and February for us means that we kick out all the men and spend the entire month highlighting incredible women in science from around the globe. So we're really excited you guys can join us for that. It's always our biggest month. And two, it's our first session with the Toronto Zoo, so we are so excited to have a new group. I'm going to introduce what we're going to be talking about in a minute. But first, we've got 6 classes joining us from across North America, so I'm going to give them a chance to do a bit of a shout out. We've got Miss Dykes, grade 2s in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Hi, guys. Hey, welcome in. We've got Miss Jonkmans, grade 1s in Ennismore, Ontario. Hi, guys. Let's get your mic. Oh, see what's going on. There they are. They're there. The mic's a little iffy, but they're excited, and that's all that matters. We've got Mr. Kim's grade 9 through 11s in Owen Sound, Ontario. Hi, guys. Hello! Hey! Mr. Kim continuing his trend as the most excited teacher in all of Canada. We've got Miss Spears, grade 10s and 11s in Erin, Ontario. Let's pull up this mic. Hi, guys. Hey, welcome in. Cool neuron on the wall. I like it. We've got Miss Leaster's grade 4s in Dover in New Jersey. Hi, guys. Hi! I love when the screens are so loud it like cuts out the mic on purpose. That's fantastic. And last but not least, we've got Miss Presner's grade 5s in Park Ridge in Illinois. Hi, guys. Welcome in. Hi! Hey, there's so many of you. I love it. All right. Of course, the reason you guys are all here today is for our speaker. So we are joined in Toronto at the Metro Toronto Zoo by Mary Ellen Fraser. And she's going to take us on a little journey of the hidden side of the zoo to understand a little bit about the Canadian animals they work with there, about some of the conservation stories they do at the zoo, and about how you can help, how you at home can engage in conservation yourself and help protect some of the amazing species that we share the world with. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining us, Mary Ellen, and take it away.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Mary Ellen. I've been working here at the Toronto Zoo for about the past 4 years in our learning and engagement branch. So I work a lot with actually school groups who come to the zoo for different programming. So I'm also joined here by one of our animals we're going to talk about today, our black-footed ferrets. We have a really cool program that we do with them. So without more to do here, I'm just going to share my screen and get our presentation going for us. So we're going to learn a lot about the Toronto Zoo itself and all the different ways that you guys can get involved with it as well. So here we go. Let me bring up our screen here. Give it a second to load here, and then we'll make sure that everyone can see it before we start. Everyone have visual and we're all good to go? Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so I can see a couple of you guys on the side as well. So I'm going to ask some questions throughout the program as well. So we might be able to raise your hands if you're able to answer the question or anything like that. So to start us off here, I wanted to show you guys the logo for the Toronto Zoo. Has anyone been to the Toronto Zoo, or have you seen the logo before by show of hands? A couple people. I'm pretty sure the Ontario schools, they might be a little bit have a little bit of a head start or an edge here for coming to our zoo. So this is our logo, and you might notice in the center there we actually have a deer head. And this is really important. I know it doesn't seem like that cool of an animal or anything like that, but they are super important. And we like to use their antlers. So you'll notice that there's a bunch of branches coming off of the zoo's head, or the deer's head, and we use these branches to tell our main goals that we have here at the Toronto Zoo. So one of our main goals is conservation. So a lot of the species that we have here at the zoo and in other zoos around the world are actually endangered or extinct in the wild. And we know that that means they're not doing so well. Their species numbers are low, and they have the possibility to be gone forever. So we do a lot of conservation work with them. We also have education. This is super important, and actually you guys are participating in this today, so you guys deserve a round of applause for yourself. By coming and being a part of this program today, you are learning about all of these species, what we do here at the Toronto Zoo, and different ways that you can get involved as well. We also have recreation. So the zoo is a very large place. If you've ever seen a football field before, we are about 650 football fields big. So try and take in how large of an area the space that actually is, where people can come and they can walk around, they can adventure with their friends and family. There's lots of programs that we run here all year that you can come to with your family. There's summer camps and ways for you just to get outside and appreciate the beauty of nature around us. We also have research, and this is what we're going to look at today as well. When you come to the zoo, most people just see the animals and they see the beauty of the world around them, which is awesome. We want people to appreciate that. But what you don't know sometimes is all the research that we do behind the scenes to help make our lives, animals better here, and then their counterparts in the wild as well. So before we get going into our biodiversity and conservation here, I want us to be able to feel a little bit more of a connection to our zoo here. So I'm going to introduce you guys to some of my favorite residents who live here at the Toronto Zoo. So these are a couple of our my favorite animals that we have here. We have our golden lion tamarins that's in the upper left-hand corner there for you guys. That specifically is Carrie. She was a baby born here last year. She lives with her mom, her dad, her brothers, and her sister. We have our lowland gorilla, baby Charlie, and her mom, Ngozi. Next to them there, I have what I think is a very underrated animal. They're the Bactrian camels. I love them very much. That's actually Zip. He's always kind of got a funky hairdo going on there for us, so he looks pretty cool all the time. And we also have our ring-tailed lemurs to the right of him. This one specifically is very excited. We just gave them an enrichment, and you can tell by the look on his face that he is super happy to find out that there is food in the bag with him. We also have our Grevy zebras here. So they're a really cool species. That's actually Tori and her foal Obi, who was born last year. We have Penelope and Candia right in the middle. There are pygmy hippos. We also have our very fierce and ferocious and quite stoic looking Amur tigers. And we have a great photo of Vasily there sticking his tongue out at us. We also have our Arctic wolves, and my personal favorite here at the zoo is our Maasai giraffes, which is really exciting. So now that you know some of the residents here at the zoo, I want to get into our biodiversity. So show of hands here, has anyone heard of biodiversity before? Yeah, a couple people. Can anyone from a class, I'll let you decide who gets to answer. Can anyone tell me what biodiversity is or what it means?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to Miss Presner's class. What do you guys think when you think of biodiversity? Any thoughts?
I think outdoors.
Science.
Studying an animal,
Number of
science,
animals.
diverse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Awesome. Exactly. So yeah, we're looking at all those animals and plant species around us. So biodiversity is the variety of life around us, which is really cool. And the more biodiversity have, so the more differences between us, so between species and between habitats, the stronger we are as a population. So the more different we are, the better off we are in the world. This helps to protect us from diseases and things like that, to make sure we don't all get sick at once. Some other really important parts of biodiversity is think about what you had for breakfast this morning. You might have had a banana, maybe you had toast, maybe you had some orange juice. A lot of these things may not grow in the country that you actually live in or where you're living, and we get them from all over the world. So having this diverse biodiversity in different plant and animal species allow us to have a diverse meal. This also helps with our medical research as well. So a lot of the medicines we take actually come from different plants and animals in the world around us. So without them, we might get sick easier or not be able to heal any cuts or scrapes or bruises that we have. And of course, there's just beauty in the world around us. When you walk outside into a forest, everything in life seems to calm down and slow down with you. There is beauty all over the world around us. So now we know what biodiversity is and why it's important, I want to show you guys how we can actually track it. And this is really cool because this just isn't here at the Toronto Zoo. This is a global scale that we use. So has anyone, show of hands, ever seen this scale that I have at the bottom here? If you've come to the Toronto Zoo before, you might have seen it on one of our signs that we have. This is the IUCN Red List. And this is actually a really cool scale that we use to track species, so plants and animals, because they're both important, and how they're doing in the wild. So least concern down here at the bottom, that's a pretty good place to be for most animals. That means their populations are doing well, their habitat is healthy, and it's able to sustain them. Now, down on the right-hand side of the scale, we see extinct in the wild and extinct, just extinct. Can any of the classes tell me what extinct means?
Yeah, let's head to Miss Leister's class in Dover. If you guys know what extinct means, you're demuted. Go for it.
Extinct means that it's no longer existing in this world in general.
Perfect.
Exactly. Yeah, there's no more of them existing in our world. And so that's a really unfortunate place for animal and plant species to be. And we want to try and protect against that. That was a great answer. Thank you for that. So there's lots of different ways that we can help protect these animals. And we're going to learn about those a little bit later on in this presentation here. Our next slide here, we're going to talk a little bit about how we can have those impacts on the animals around us and our species around us. So we use an acronym here at the Toronto Zoo called HIPPO. Not a real hippo, although I do have one here up on the picture on the screen with us, but it helps us remember all the ways that we can have impacts on the world around us. So we have two versions of this. We have a sad hippo, which is up on the screen now, and we have a happy hippo, which we're going to learn about in just a second. So our sad hippo here is habitat loss. So that's our H here. And that basically just talks about when we go into a forest or maybe a wetland or a marsh, and we take down the trees or we fill in the wetland so that we can build, a house or maybe a highway. We're taking away all those species and the animal species homes as well. We have invasive species. Now, if you live here in Ontario, you've probably seen this one before. Up on my screen, I have a vine. That's actually dog strangling vine. Especially if you come to the Toronto Zoo, it is everywhere around here. And unfortunately, that's what we call an invasive species. It's not native to this area, but it came over years and years and years ago, and we can't seem to get rid of it. And it takes over our habitats here. And when it does that, it outcompetes our natural species, making it harder for them to grow and harder for our native animal species to find the food that they like. Now, I have pollution up here as well. Can we get a couple volunteers from different classes to name types of pollution that they know?
Absolutely. How about we go to Ms. Spiro's class? What do you guys think? Pollution, what jumps to mind?
You're close. Okay, light pollution.
Light pollution?
Yeah,
Or what else?
that's one that people usually forget about. What's another one?
Industrial factories.
Factories, okay. Yeah.
Air pollution.
Air pollution, air, light, factories. So this is a good group. Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah. So there's lots of different types. Even when you think about when you're walking down the street and you might see litter or anything like that on the ground, that's also a type of pollution. So there's lots of different types out there. Now, you'll notice I have people up on our sad hippo list. And I don't mean to say that people are bad for the environment. It's just that we have to be careful of our actions. So everything we do in our life has an impact on the world around us. And these impacts can be negative or positive. And so it just means for us to think about our actions so that we try and have only a positive impact on the world around us. Our last one here in our acronym for HIPPO is over collection. So you'll see in the bottom photo there, I have a photo of fish being collected out of the water. So this is really a pretty normal thing that happens for humans. You know, we like to eat fish, most of us do, and we collect them. The problem is those fish play a role in their own habitat. So they might be food for another animal. They might need to hunt other animals to keep their populations in check. And they might need to reproduce to create more of their own species as well. And when we take too many out at once, we don't leave enough fish to have their role properly completed in their environment anymore. Okay, so we've just talked a little bit about the sad hippo and ways that we're negatively impacting the world, but I want to make our mind shifts now to the positive things that we can look at in the world. So we have the word up on the board here, conservation. Can I get a volunteer from a class to tell me what conservation is?
Sure. So let's go to Miss Jennings' class. Joined us a little bit after we started. So I'm going to go to them and see what you guys think. When you think of conservation, did anything jump to mind? No, nothing in that class. Okay, how about Miss Dyke's class? What do you guys think? Conservation.
So like to like conserve something like
To collect, preserve something? Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. And here at the Toronto Zoo, what do you think we're trying to conserve or save? What are we trying to do here?
Yeah, same class, Miss Dyke's group. What are we saving at the zoo? What do you guys think? Oh, someone has a thought. Okay. I can check in with another class really quick. How about Miss Presner's group? What are we trying to save at the Toronto Zoo?
Wildlife.
Wildlife.
Yeah, exactly. So we're looking at all those animal species I just showed you in the beginning. We're looking at different plant species here. We have a wide range of plant species in our greenhouse here at the Toronto Zoo as well. And we're looking to save their habitats. It's all good and fun to save a species, but if we haven't saved their habitat, their natural home in the wild, there's really no point to save the species because they don't have anywhere to go back to. So we need to make sure that we're always saving our natural habitats as well as the individual species. So we're going to learn about our happy hippo now. So we have the same acronym, but different words here up on the board, and a hippo that's a little bit calmer looking in our slideshow. So here we have habitat restoration. So this is the opposite of our habitat destruction. This is when we take an area that's been destroyed. So maybe all the trees were cut down, maybe there's litter on the ground, and we fix it up. And this is actually something you guys can participate in. If you go to shoreline cleanups or anything like that, you're able to go and pick up trash and litter that's been left behind in an environment. And we can reintroduce native species into that area and allow the area to fully flourish again and be a natural space. We have information. And once again, you guys deserve a round of applause for this because you are already participating in our happy hippo here. You are having a positive impact on the world around you. You're here today listening to me talk about conservation and biodiversity, and you are gathering all of this new information that you're able to go back and share with people in your lives as well. So we have practicing the 3 R's. These ones are pretty easy, but I want to see, does anyone know what the 3 R's are?
Yeah, so let me head back to Ms. Leaser's class. The 3 R's. Do you guys have any idea?
No, maybe.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Perfect.
Yeah, there you go. Reduce, reuse, recycle. And we always like to add in compost there as well if you're able to do it in your area. So making sure that when you are done with a product or even before you purchase the product, do you really need it in your life? Is it something that you're able to recycle or repurpose later on in life? And just making sure that we are constantly aware of how our actions are taking place around the world. Purchase items wisely. Now, for some of you, this may not have as much to do with you right now in life. If you're a little bit younger, I know our grade ones might have a slight harder time with this one, but I'm looking to you guys in our older high school classes here. When you're going out and purchasing items, whether it be food or products or maybe hair products, anything like that, make sure that you're getting items that are maybe locally sourced or at least sustainably sourced. So that means that they aren't being taken from the environment without causing too much damage, as well as when you go, bring a reusable shopping bag with you, try and have a reusable water bottle with you instead of just getting a disposable one every time. Our last one up here is organizations. And this one's really important as well. Just by supporting organizations that are doing good in the world around you, you can make a positive impact as well. So you guys, again, are doing this right now by supporting me at the Toronto Zoo, by listening to me talk about this. We're a great organization and we have lots of hidden zoo aspects that we're going to get into in a second, of different ways that we help out and conserve around the world. So we're going to take a look at our hidden zoo is what we like to call it. And we like to call it the tip of the iceberg. So when you come to the Toronto Zoo, you might be walking around and you come across our polar bear exhibit. Now we have 5 polar bears here at the Toronto Zoo right now, and they are absolutely beautiful. I love going to watch them swim and play with each other. It's so fun to see them eat pumpkin in the fall time. They absolutely love it. But what you don't see is all the research that we've done underneath the surface to help with conservation efforts for wild polar bears and to help maximize the diet that we give our polar bears here so that it most closely relates to what they would be getting in the wild. So some of our other examples here is our vet team. So we actually have a wildlife health center. It's absolutely incredible. It was just rebuilt a couple years ago, and we have a full team of vets and vet techs who are dedicated around the clock to taking care of our animals here in any way they might need. And we go as far as bringing in outside help. So a couple years ago, one of our primate species had a knee injury, and we actually brought in a doctor who worked on a very famous hockey player's knee as well. And we brought them in to help assist with our surgery, which is really cool. Not many people think about this, but we actually have a team of wildlife nutritionists here at the Toronto Zoo as well. So does anyone want to guess how many animals we actually have here at the Toronto Zoo?
What do we think? Okay, how about Miss Jonkman's class? The whole class. What do you guys think? How many animals at the whole zoo? Let's see. Few hundred, okay.
Few hundred, okay, think a little bit higher there.
450, if you're 1,000. Okay, little ones. Tell us,
I
Mariel.
like it. Okay. Awesome. So we actually have about 5,000 animals here at the Toronto Zoo, which is an insane amount. And they all need to eat on a regular basis. And within our 5,000 animals, we have about 500 different species of animals. And our nutrition staff prepare meals for them every single day based on their age, their species, their gender, maybe they're pregnant, and they prepare all of this food. And we do lots of research here as well to look at how their natural diet can be reflected in their zoo diet as well. The Toronto Zoo has even gone as far as we have created some feline diets that are actually used all over the world. So things that we feed our cats here, people have really liked what we've been doing and it has showed good progress with them, that they use it now at their zoos all over the world. Now, most of the time when you think of a zoo, you think about the people who work here, you think about our zookeepers. And they are a super important part and job as well. They're the ones who are out there in the field working on conservation programs. They interact with our animals on a regular basis, cleaning up their exhibits, preparing enrichments for them. So if you ever come to the zoo and you see a tiger biting a barrel or an orangutan using a stick to pull something out of a tree, those are enrichments for them that help mimic a natural behavior in the wild. So it gives them a little bit more something to do while they're here living with us. There's also lots of outreach programs that we do. So a lot of our animals participate in training, and it's not the same kind of training that you might have with your dog or cat at home. This is part of life-saving training that we do with them. So a lot of our animals can offer up their paw for a blood draw. So in case they're sick, we're able to tell why, we can get some blood from them. Our snow leopards are able to do ultrasounds, which is really cool. So when our female was pregnant a couple years ago, they could actually ultrasound her belly on a regular basis to check on how the babies were doing. Alrighty, so we've talked a little bit about all the research and things that we do here, but I want to introduce you guys to some species that you probably won't get to see that often if you come to the zoo. And that's because they're a little bit more behind the scenes. These are our species that we reintroduce into the wild. So we have two that we're going to talk about today. Our first one are Blandings turtles. So these guys are native to North America and Ontario. So if you do live in Ontario, you might see them. They're pretty recognizable. They have a nice yellow chin. So they're pretty easily to be found. We have a Head Start program with them. So basically what this means, if we see a nest or somebody reports a nest that's not in a good location, so if it's near a road or not near water, or maybe it's in somebody's backyard, and the eggs, when they hatch, they probably won't survive very long. So we go and collect them, we bring them here to the zoo, and we help them to hatch. We hold on to them for 2 years, and then we release them back into their natural habitat. So right now we have 51 babies who are in our nursery, and they're going to be released in 2021. And you might ask, why do we hold on to them for 2 years before releasing them? Well, I'm going to show you why. This is what a baby's Blanding turtle looks like. Absolutely adorable. I know, they are so cute. They're about the size of a loony, so they're very tiny. And to pretty much everything else in their habitat, they look absolutely delicious. So that's very unfortunate for them. They're quite tiny. They don't have a lot of resources to get away or protect themselves yet. So we hold on to them and we grow them for 2 years until they're about the size of a baked potato, which looks something like this here. So this is their size. They're a little bit bigger, they're a little bit stronger, their shell has formed more. And if you look in the upper right 2 photos of my presentation, you can see something silver on the back of their backs there. And that's because we actually put a tracker on these turtles when they get released. And this is just a way for us to collect extra information. So when they disperse from us and we release them into the wild, we can see where they go for the first little while and see how they survive. Eventually the trackers do fall off, and so we can't follow them forever, but it's a good little bit of first information. Alrighty, now our next animal, you guys have actually already met them because they're sitting right behind me here. We're gonna look at our black-footed ferrets. So again, these guys are a really cool species, and they're actually really interesting because they were declared extinct in 1979. So who remembers what extinct means? We had it earlier on in the slideshow. Can anyone retell me what it is?
Yeah, how about Ms. Jennings' class? I'll go back and see if, oh yeah, you guys are in a little bit of trouble with your mic, but I'm gonna check in with you guys anyway. Ms. Jennings' class, remember what extinct means?
not existing, like doesn't exist.
Yeah, perfect.
Exactly. So they don't exist anymore. So we thought that this species was extinct. And then 2 years later, a farmer and his dog actually came across a small population of them, about 18 individuals, which is absolutely crazy to think about. And what happened was we swooped in, a bunch of organizations got together and we picked up those ferrets from the wild and we brought them in for a captive breeding program. And the Toronto Zoo is one of those organizations who helps out with this. So we have bred hundreds of kits, which are baby ferrets, and helped release a lot of them back into the wild, which is really cool. So I'm going to show you guys a little video here. Hopefully it loads for us of our ferrets when they're growing up here. So you can see on the left-hand side of my screen, we have some baby ferrets and they're all kind of sleeping together. I see that my video is lagging a little bit here. If you don't get to watch it here and you want to see them, it's just them walking around, but you can see it on our YouTube channel as well. We have videos of our black-footed ferrets up on there. So if you go to the Toronto Zoo's YouTube channel there. But something that's really cool about our ferrets is we can't just put them back into the wild once they're an adult. We kind of have to teach them how to be ferrets. So just like you guys go to school every day, our black-footed ferrets go to boot camp. Yes, you heard it right. They go to a little black-footed ferret boot camp where they learn how to hunt their food. So that's the animal that they eat at the bottom there. It is the prairie dog. And like I was saying before in our presentation, it's great to conserve species, but we have to make sure that their habitat is ready for them as well. So there's a lot of research being done right now on the black-footed ferret habitat to make sure that it's ready for them to go and be reintroduced to. Alrighty, we're almost done our presentation today, but I want to teach you guys some ways that you can get involved as well. So on my screen right now, there's a bunch of different organizations that you guys can get involved with individually or as a school. One of the best ones here is a phone apes recycling program. So if you have a cell phone or anyone in your family does, and you're looking to upgrade it, maybe it doesn't work anymore, and you're just going to toss it in the trash or keep it in your upper drawer for the next 10 years of your life. Think about recycling your phone instead to this program. So what they do is they take out the metal and the minerals inside, and they put them into new phones that are being produced. And this way we can actually save the rainforest habitat where our lowland gorillas like to live in Africa. There's another way as well when you're out shopping for any candy or any food or anything like that during your everyday life, you can look for items that are made with sustainably grown palm oil. So there's a great fact sheet there in the middle for lots of information on that as well. So there's lots of different ways that you can get involved. Alrighty, guys, I want to thank you for listening here today to me present about all these ways that you can get involved and all the ways that the Toronto Zoo are getting involved. These are some of my favorite photos here at the end of some of our other animals here at the Toronto Zoo. And if anyone has any questions about our presentation, I'd love to take them.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for that, Mary Ellen. That was amazing. So as you're coming out of screen share, in addition to our 7 classes that are live, we also have at least 8 others joining us on YouTube right now, which is fantastic. So for our YouTube,
nice.
Yeah, it's like from all over the place. We've got everywhere. So for our YouTube groups, if you guys want to type in your questions in the chat bar, please do, and I'll take as many as I can. But that said, let's start by going to Miss Leister's class. If you guys want to kick us off with a question, come on.
What are you doing?
Yeah, you guys, do you have any questions? I can come back in a second.
We can't see you.
Yeah.
Oh no.
That's odd.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, good. You guys have a question? Come on up.
What's your popularest animal in the zoo?
Ooh.
Our most popular animal. That would probably have to be either our giraffes. They're pretty popular right now. I'll tell you guys a really cool thing. Our female giraffe, her name is Mastari. She's actually pregnant right now and expecting a baby earlier this spring. Or later this spring, sorry. So she is a pretty popular animal to see right now. Good question.
All right, Miss Presner's class. If you guys want to come up, go for it.
Do you ever play with the animals?
Do I personally? I have gotten a couple really cool behind the scenes experiences working here at the Toronto Zoo where I've gotten to interact with them like I was a keeper for the day. But we don't really do that much like human to animal playing with them. I will say that I know our tiger keepers play a version of tag with our tigers to run with them. So our keepers will run around the outside of the exhibit while the tiger runs on the inside trying to catch them, which is kind of cool.
How cool is that? Very neat. All right, Miss Dykes' class, if you guys want to come up, go for it.
Does red pandas bite?
Could you?
Pardon?
Do red pandas bite?
Red pandas bite.
Do red pandas bite? That's a good question. Well, I always like to say for anyone who asks me if an animal can bite them, any animal with a mouth can bite. So they can bite you, but our red pandas are fairly friendly. They're friendly enough that the keepers can go into the exhibit with them. So that's a pretty good example of they tolerate the people being around them there.
It's always good to be respectful of all animals because, you know,
Exactly.
never want to get in their habitats, their place. And yeah, good question, guys. All right, let's go to Miss Jennings' class. Come on up.
How many animals have escaped zoos?
Ooh, how many animals have escaped zoos or
How many
escaped
animals
your
have
zoo?
escaped zoos? Oh my goodness. I don't know for like all zoos in general. I will say that we have a lot of free flight areas here in the Toronto Zoo, which means when you walk into a building, there's just birds flying all around you. And 2 years ago, I found one of our parrots out by our tundra exhibit when they are actually from our Australasia area of our zoo. So he was a little bit far away from home, but they're very easily coursed back into their habitat.
Yeah.
Good question though.
It wasn't at the Toronto Zoo, but Toronto did have 2 escaped capybaras at a park in the city core for at least a month. 2 pig-sized rodents.
Yes,
So
that is true.
not the first time we've had that sort of thing. Great question. All right,
Yeah.
Miss Jonkman's class. If you guys have a question, come on up. Yeah, you're good.
She wants to know what the polar bears do in the summer.
What do the polar bears do in the summer? Great question.
Really good question. So our polar bears in the summertime, that's when you'll see them in the water quite a bit. So they like to swim. They have a nice big pool in their exhibit and they'll like to get in the water. They have some really cool buckets and different barrels that they like to play with and submerge. In the summertime as well, because it is so hot, you'll often see them liking to take some nice naps. This is one of the times of year as well where they're part of their fasting time in the year. So they're actually not too active in the wild at this time either because they're kind of waiting for some of their food to come back and for the sea ice to come back and form for them. So they do a little bit of napping. You can see in our one exhibit, we have quite a bit of grass. And I love seeing our polar bears. They will kind of slide down the hill that we have. So you might come to the zoo one day and see that our polar bears are totally green from grass stains, which is kind of cool.
That's, I've never seen that, and I've been to the zoo for many years, so I have to come back more often just to check that out. That's fun.
Exactly.
We have one teacher in Arlington that is typing in a ton of questions on YouTube for the other classes. If you guys want to do that, please do, because I'm going to start taking them in a second. But first, Miss Spiro's class, if you guys have one, come on up.
If the new population of ferrets started from 18 individuals, is there a problem with genetic similarity?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. That's awesome. So we do find that is an issue in a lot of species who have that. Cheetahs also went through a very similar kind of decline in population several years ago as well. We call it a bottleneck effect. So when you think about it, there's a lot of animals in a population, and then all of a sudden it goes to a really tiny amount of animals, and we try and bridge it back out. So we just have to be really careful of who we're breeding with each other. So we follow what's called an SSP, a species survival plan. I like to think of it kind of like a dating service for animals. And we are basically able to compare their genetics. So we work with all the other zoos who are accredited around the world. And we compare our genetics of our species or our individuals to theirs. And we see if we have a good matchup. So we specifically look for animals who are further related to each other, who aren't closely related, and we'll breed them together to get the new generation. That's a really good question.
Very good question, guys. All right, and then Mr. Kim's class, and on sound, if you guys have a question, come on up.
Yep, come on up.
I don't want to. Okay. What animal takes the most responsibilities?
Yeah.
Oh, the one animal takes the most responsibilities. Oh, that's a good question. I think most animals, Oh, I don't even know how to answer this, because every animal has its own unique qualities and traits that they need to be looked after. I think if you had a bunch of keepers though in a room together, they might argue that their animals were the most to take care of. But I think for the most part, they all have a kind of an equal level. Definitely when an animal is pregnant or has maybe a baby with them already, they're definitely a little bit more work to take care of.
Yeah, you highlighted too all this, behind the scenes stuff, all taking care of them, all sick bays. There's so much that goes to animal care beyond just the day by day. Yeah, I love the question, but it is a hard one. I like the idea of all the keepers in the room together. I'm going to take a few questions from groups on YouTube. So Miss Wallach's class, they're joining in Arlington, Virginia. They've asked a bunch of questions, but
Oh, nice.
how long do you keep most animals in the zoo before letting them go back in the wild? This is just a question that could be taken in a lot of different directions, so I'm curious what you have to say.
Sure. Good question though. People are always wondering this. So any animal that you see when you come to the zoo are animals who live here permanently. So they're not animals who are going to go back into wild. They were bred in captivity, and they don't have that survival skill that most animals need. And for the most part, they are interested in humans. And for animals who are going back out into the wild, they really need to have what we like to call a healthy fear of humans. They don't want to interact with us at all. So that's why our animals you see in our breeding program that we have who do go back into the wild, you don't actually see them when you come to the zoo. They actually are bred in a barn that's across the street from the zoo here. So only a few keepers interact with them on a limited basis. Our Blandings turtles, we keep them for 2 years. And then they get reintroduced back into the wild. And our other animals like our black-footed ferrets and our eastern loggerhead shrikes, they're another animal that we do a captive breeding program with here. I didn't mention them in the presentation though. We keep them until they're adults or what we call sexually mature, so that they're able to go into the wild and have their own offspring then.
Fantastic, great answer. All right, let's go back to Ms. Leister's class. If you guys have another question, come on up.
What college did you go?
What did you go to college for?
What did you go to college for?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. So I went to Trent University, that's here in Ontario, and I studied environmental science while I was there. So I did a 4-year degree when I was there. I really loved it. It was a great program and a great school.
Now, you're obviously an educator and you know a lot about these animals, but we always love to stress when we can that if you guys are interested in a zoo, there are tons of different jobs that there are to have in a zoo. If you want to work in food, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to do arts, I mean, there are a ton of opportunities to end up working with and near animals. So, yeah.
There are, especially we always love to say there are lots of opportunities if you like to work in the arts here. We have a whole team of people dedicated to exhibit design. So creating and drawing the murals that you see when you come to the zoo. We have a whole team of graphics who like to design our giant posters like this behind me. I actually started as a zoo camp counselor when I first started here. So if you ever came to the zoo for summer camp, I might have been your counselor a couple years ago, which is really cool. So there's lots of different ways to get involved for sure.
Amazing. All right. Let me go to Miss Presner's class and I'll take another one from a group on YouTube.
What's the closest animal to being extinct in the zoo?
Yeah.
The closest animal to being extinct in the zoo right now. Oh my goodness, I'm looking to Mike here. I wonder if we can think of the closest animal. Well, the black-footed ferrets aren't doing so well. Even though we are doing the breeding population here with them, they're having a hard time in their habitat once we reintroduce them back into the wild because the habitat isn't quite ready for them. There's also our Sumatran orangutans. So I mentioned in my presentation about palm oil, and that is a product that we use in lots of different food and like hygiene products, so soap and shampoo. And that is grown in parts of the world where the Sumatran orangutans like to live in rainforests. And unfortunately, we're cutting down the rainforest to grow this plant for us. And when we do that, we're taking away their homes. So there aren't very many. They're actually called critically endangered. And if you remember our red list that we looked at, all the little steps on it that tell us where an animal is in their population, that is the next to the extinct in the wild one. So they're not doing well at all.
Sad question, but great answer. All right, I want to take a question from a group on YouTube. So Miss O'Donnell's class, grade 5s in Redford in Michigan, they wanted to ask, how many people work at the zoo to take care of the animals?
That's a really good question. So that kind of varies. Most people don't actually know that the Toronto Zoo is open all winter long. So we are here. The only day we're closed is Christmas Day. But in the winter months, those are slower times of the year, so we have less staff. I'd say we probably have about 350 staff in the summertime, and that includes all of our seasonal people. So all our camp counselors, our seasonal keepers, and everybody working our front gates. But we're not just employees here at the zoo. We also have over 400 volunteers. Which is absolutely incredible. So this is year-round volunteers, people who come in on weekends, volunteers who come in to do school programs with schools who come to the zoo. And we also have ambassadors. So if you live near the zoo and you're looking to get your community hours for your school, you can actually get them by participating in programs that we run here at the Toronto Zoo.
Amazing. All right. Let's head back to Ms. Dice class. That's you guys have a second question? Come on up.
How many mammals do you have at the zoo?
Mammals.
How many mammals do we have at the zoo? All right, let me think about this here.
1, 2.
So yeah, right, go through the pavilions here. So we have about 5,000 animals total, but we sometimes include like our fish and things like that. And in one of our tanks alone, we have almost 1,000 fish. So that takes up a good amount of our species or our animals there. I'd probably say we have at least 40 or 50 different types of mammals. Some of my favorites, like I mentioned, are our giraffes. We have lions here. They're pretty cool. We have 3 white lions. We have 2 different types of tigers, and we have a bunch of goats. And I know they don't sound that exciting, but the goats are actually really cool. They live in our Eurasia section of the zoo, and they are totally underrated. I love them.
That answers all the questions on the YouTube of like, what's your favorite animal? It's goats.
Perfect.
By
Yeah,
the way,
goats.
quick question. You have lions and tigers. Do you have bears, oh my, or are there no bears there?
We do. We always have the bears, oh my.
Fantastic. All right. Let's go back to Miss Jennings' class. If you guys have another question, come on up.
Do you think zoos are good?
Ooh.
Do I think?
Zoos are good.
Good question. That is a really good question. I'm actually glad that you asked that. And that's because most people are sometimes afraid to ask that question. Now, I always like to say in an ideal world, a zoo wouldn't have to exist. And that's because the habitats and the animals and species living in them would all be happy and healthy and have stable populations. But unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world. And so if you guys are out there supporting accredited zoos and aquariums like the Toronto Zoo, and we're working towards that perfect goal and that perfect future, then I believe, yes, zoos are definitely good. We are trying to work for a better or brighter tomorrow for all of our species that we have here, plants and animals. Really good question. Thank you.
It's something that a class had actually asked before we started the session too, that they've been covering that in their class. And it's something, having worked in zoos and aquariums myself, the people at zoos and aquariums you will run into are the most dedicated, passionate people for animals you'll ever run into in your entire life. And these places allow you to interact with animals in a way that most people will never get a chance to do. Some people are lucky enough to get to go to places with all these creatures, but most won't. When I was a kid, I got inspired to come into conservation and science because of going to the Toronto Zoo personally. So I'm really glad you got that question.
Yeah, me too. And of course, yeah, it's definitely one of those things. We are a dedicated group here for sure.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take 4 more questions before we wrap up. We already like so many questions. I love it. Quick question from Miss King's class. Miss King's class is joining us from Park Ridge, Illinois, grade 5, Miss Miller's group. What foods do the animals eat, Mary Ellen?
What foods do they eat? That's a really good question. What don't they eat, honestly? For a lot of our animals who are herbivores, so animals who only eat vegetables and things like that, they eat a lot of the similar things that we do. Some cool facts for you guys here are gorillas that we have here at the zoo. When the females were pregnant, we gave them tea to help with morning sickness when they were a little bit nauseous, and we found out that they actually really enjoy that. So that's something that's been worked into their diet on a regular basis for them, which is really cool. So the girls like to have their tea in the morning. Our carnivores here, we actually have really cool carnivore feedings that you can come and see where they actually get like a full carcass of an animal. So those are our meat eaters, and they're eating a variety of different meats. Really cool. I mentioned earlier when you come see our polar bears, if you come in the fall, you might see them eating pumpkins. And people are always kind of confused by that, but they actually really love pumpkins. And in the summertime in the wild, they've been observed to eat grass and berries as well. So we give them lettuce and apples and carrots and pumpkins here in the summertime.
And if it's good enough for a polar bear, it's good enough for you.
Exactly.
Fantastic. All right, 3 more questions from live classes. Miss Jonkman's class, come on up, and you have a second one? Go for it. Hi, guys. Oh, we can't quite hear you guys anymore. Okay, so I'm going to come back in 2 seconds, and we'll see if we can get your mic working. If not, there's a way you can type in questions at the bottom of your screen. But I'm going to go to Miss Spira's class first, and I'll come right back, okay? All right, Miss Spira's group.
If a species were to go extinct in Canada, but not in another country, could you bring those animals over to reintroduce the population? Or would there be a risk or too much of a risk from things like microbes and viruses?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. Awesome. Thank you for that. So if an animal goes extinct in one part of the world, but there's other populations in other areas, it definitely could be something to be looked into to have them brought over into our breeding population here. Any animal that moves anywhere in the world, they go through a quarantine process. So they get checked for any diseases or parasites or bugs or anything like that. And when they get to a new location, they are isolated for 30 days and monitored just to make sure that they've kind of gotten the lay of the land and that they're not going to pass any diseases to our animals that we have here. So we can definitely do that. There's actually quite a few species in the world that are endemic, which means they only live in that one area. So for example, our ring-tailed lemurs, they only live in Madagascar. That is the only place in the world that they are naturally found. So if they went extinct there, we would have to bring and use our captive populations from all over the world to try and reintroduce them somewhere else, or back into Madagascar, sorry. Really good question there.
Really good question. We've actually been working with Banff National Park over the last few months, and they talk about reintroducing bison back into the US. So this is something that actually does happen on a regular basis with park services, zoos, and et cetera. So fantastic, guys.
Exactly,
right.
Yeah.
I'm going to check back in with Miss Jonkman's class, see if the mic's working now. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Let's try. No, I don't know why it cut out. Okay, so the bottom of your screen, there's a little chat bar, a little oval 3 dots. Type in your question there and I'll take it in 2 seconds, okay? But I'm gonna go back to Mr. Kim's class for a second question, and then we'll come back to you to wrap it up.
Hi, so we're in environmental science class, and I'm hoping, do you have any words of wisdom for our students as to what they can do moving forward for the Toronto Zoo or just in general for life?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I actually want to tell you guys right now that when I was in high school, I was in a urban watershed class. And I had a teacher who was very dedicated and very enthusiastic as well. So I love to see that. And that is actually what put me on my path to environmental science. So it was this class that I was in high school, very similar to yours, which made me choose and go into the study and field that I am in today. So it's absolutely amazing to see so many of you also learning about this program as well. Any advice I have to say, there are so many possibilities out there. When I first started studying environmental science at Trent University, I thought that I was going to be, in a lab somewhere someday or out in the field doing research. And I thought that that's what everyone with my degree just went out and did. But there is so much more that you can do with your degree, and you can go into anything that you want with an environmental background. There's so many great opportunities and possibilities out there for you. So definitely get the education with it, and then go where your journey takes you. It's really quite an amazing place to be, for sure.
Amazing. That would have been a great question to wrap up. We've got to take that question from Ms. Jonkman's class because it's awesome. So what is the oldest animal at the zoo, Mary Ellen?
The oldest animal at the zoo, I'm trying to think, is it Charles or Booty? Oh, Rasputin. Oh my goodness, he is. Okay, so we have an animal here at the zoo. They're called an Aldabra tortoise. I actually call them the abracadabra tortoise because I have a hard time saying their name. And they are a species of tortoise who have been known to potentially live for up to 200 years, which is absolutely crazy. The ones we have here, we're not sure about their exact date of birth, but they were living here at the zoo back in the 90s. So they left and then came back, and we think they're somewhere in their 60s. So they're probably our oldest animal that we have here at the zoo right now.
Fantastic. Well, Mary Ellen, this was such an amazing presentation, and I know it's your first one with us, so how we wrap these up every time is I'm going to demute every class's microphone, and so boys and girls, if you guys could get ready to join me in saying a huge thank you to Mary Ellen for joining us today. You are all now demuted. Go for it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, everybody. Thank you.
And if that isn't a fulfilling way to start your day, I don't know what is. All right.
I love it.
Thank you guys so much to all the classes. Really thoughtful questions from high school classes today too, which we really appreciate. So great group of classes. Thank you guys so, so much. And we look forward to doing many more with the Toronto Zoo over the coming months. So keep checking in with us and we'll keep the story going. Mary Ellen, thank you again so, so much.
Thank you for having me. I'm really glad I got to spend my morning with you guys here. I hope you learned something new today and want to get out there and get involved.
Sure did. Let's get them all to the zoo.
Yes, exactly.
Have a nice rest of your day. And